Greetings in the name of His Majesty, Haile I, Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari, Holy Emmanuel I, Selassie I the First, Yeshua Christos in his kingly character, King Alpha, Queen Omega, Blessed Haile I, Selassie I, His Imperial Majesty, and Queen Menenai I, Alpha and Omega. My name is, full name is Abba Ras Anebana Tafari. Abba means father, Ras means king, Anebana means he who is one with all, Tafari means creator. So ones and ones know. And my name is Anebana Tafari. I'm here today to do a little video. I guess just to introduce I myself before I start doing multiple blogs and whatnot. I'm really, it's not, again, as I would say, for entertainment per se purposes. It is for a mutual building, mutual edification, feasibly. Just to put forward, I'm not here to spark debates, though I have no issues or insecurity concerning things I feel and know deeply and understand. I try to stay open all the while because we're in a vast, immense universe. That being said, my name again is Anebana Tafari, and I was born in this particular physical body 52 years ago in Detroit, Michigan. When I say I was born there, I mean that very literally, in that I was born there, and then my mom, who was living in Chicago primarily at the time, she had me in Detroit and then went back to Chicago, um, where I grew up, I would say primarily from, that age of infant through go up to the point of going to the military when I was 19. Previous to that, just to have a little background, I guess, I started consciously praying, connecting, I would say, when I was about 6. The first time I think I can remember, really just talking to the Most High. And then when I was 7 was the first time I actually sat to meditate. And I remember it pretty vividly. Because I remember my mother walking up on I, and both my parents were, we'll say, herbalists. And so there was always generally incense as well as incense boats, incense holders in the house. So I got a stick of incense and I lit it and I sat it in front of me and I sat with my back erect against the wall. And I proceeded to do, at the time, what I thought of as meditation, which was just being still and allowing my mind to be still and calm, going into myself. At that point, just as I was starting, my mom walked up. I guess I have to put this into somewhat of a context. At the time, she was uh, a confirmed atheist, which has later become agnostic. And she walked up to me and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I looked up to her with my little 7-year-old voice and I was like, "I'm meditating." And she was like, "No, you're not." And so I remember quite vividly my reaction at that point in space time was, and my response was to simply stop all of my thoughts in that moment. Like I just did there. And when a person, I don't know if you've been around many people who meditate, but when a person really goes into that state of stillness, if a person has any kind of sensitivity, so to speak, to subtle energy, and even if they don't really, they're going to feel the, how one say, shift in the energy or vibration of that person that's meditating in their space or near them. And like I said, my mom walked up and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm meditating." She's like, "No, you're not." And I said, "Look, yes, I am. Watch." And I did what I just said I was doing, just shut my thoughts down, quiet my mind. And I feel like my mom felt the shift at that point in space time, but she really couldn't accept that some 7-year old was sitting in her house meditating person. um, see, she looked at me and felt what she felt. She was like, "You're crazy," and she just walked away. And I was like, "Well, that's cool. That way she won't be bothering me." But it also gave me a very pointed understanding about, at a very young age, about consciousness and about how would we put that? I would put that as what mature consciousness is, what evolving consciousness is, what and consciousness of one who is here to cultivate greater full enlightenment or knowledge of self. And so she, like I said, what I realized through that experience was that, wow, I'm a little young person, and wow, this kind of can throw some people off. If you raise your vibration a certain way, some people may think you odd. Also, the other thing that I realized was that there were varying maturity levels that had something to do with age, but not everything to do with age. There was spiritual maturity that is with a soul, with a being, as they're on. Each one is on their journey in the one. And so I was just, taking this time to, I guess, share this little anecdote. And there are some other anecdotes as I continue these discourses, talks, sharing, that will hopefully and feasibly also maybe stimulate someone else to, begin their journey. Or if somebody's on their journey already, perhaps there's something that resonates and that'll give you, that one some sense of affirmation, confirmation, because it can seem in the midst of it, because in essence, in one way, each one in their experience may appear or feel to be that they're utterly alone. But the nature of oneness is that we're one. So even when you're feeling that way, the nature of it is that there are many ones and ones also on the path of awareness, love, light, wisdom, consciousness, peace, harmony, who are present and with you, as ones would say, in the spirit. And I think that's a very important um, thing to realize and know all the while, so that we're not trying to draw strictly from our individual experience when we have a connection to a infinite source, an infinite well of knowledge and wisdom and understanding and peace and love. Little bit about me, a little bit more about me, I guess. Um, I was born not with the name Anebana Tafari. Let's just start that off the bat. I was born with the name Christopher Mark Murray, which in meaning is Christ-bearing warrior. And later I looked at this name and I was like, let me just look at this, because I'm very interested in words and names and ideology, because I feel and know that there's much truth hidden right in our plain sight, that is in language and words. There's much truth of consciousness that's right there in words. For example, we could look at the English word individual. The word indivi, the root Latin word indivi, means indivisible. And dual, of course, means dualistic or two, polar. So an individual is an actuality word that means indivisible duality. Now, if something is indivisible, then that must mean that it is one. And duality, in reality, is an appearance. So we are indivisible from our source, our creator, the enlightened consciousness, divine energy, however one's conceive of it. I conceive of it and came to know of it through His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie Jah Rastafari Holy Emmanuel Selassie, and as I Rastafari would say, the indwelling creator, the indwelling Irata, who live and reigns in the hearts of all flesh continually. When we say this, it is to say that the very fact that this one or that one is breathing air, you're not sitting there consciously going, okay, inhale, exhale, unless you're doing some yoga or something of that nature. Outside of that kind of situation that is going on due to divine intellect, your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, your liver is livering, and your kidneys are kidneying, and etc. Through divine intellect that is at one with you and a part of you. But we tend to not be recognizant, which is to say we tend to not recognize and be aware in such a manner that we can connect to this divine intellect consistently, unless we meditate and pray and align ourselves with truth and live, which is to say to live true. And there's a lot of, I think, debate, quibble about what is the truth. Everybody's got a perspective and so on and so forth. There are certain essential things, I feel, and there are certain essential things that as conscious beings manifested into structural forms, physical bodies, that we essentially all go for, as it were, beyond food, clothing, and shelter, so to speak, those physical needs. And that is love, acceptance, purpose, and direction. Because when we have focus, we have direction. Focus, I would say. So we have focus, purpose, We feel and know our identity as love, as consciousness, as beings that are extended from source, intrinsically at one with, and able to tap this infinite, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, divine, I vine well. So there's a little bit about me. I'm also, let's see here, artist. Some would say I'm an MC. I spit bars. I generally consider myself an artist, a creative, a creator, a co-creator being. Um, so I'm not necessarily limited to one media or medium. What I've seen is that in connecting to source via, getting to one's spirituality, one's true nature, that you naturally will become creative. It's just kind of like, yeah, you got cake, it's sweet. It's kind of the nature of, the proverbial non-beast, as it were, in this case. So I guess I'm just here to, spit forth some and share some things that are on my heart and mind. I'm not scripting this or anything like that. I never have been dealing with this one or that one in either teaching or learning format, scripted anything or really practiced in that way. I allow spirit, consciousness, wisdom to flow. And I connect with this one or that one in the conversational context I'm saying. Um, and whatever needs to be said will be vibrated, basically. Whatever I may not even personally be aware of it. Sometimes I am. A lot of times I am, because if I'm watching the person, I can see it in their energy and this kind of thing. If they received vibration via this particular, channel, and they receive their own resonance and activation in whatever way, either be it, energetic or conceptual in the sense of a mind, heart opening, to more reality. Um, One of the things I wanted to talk about, I guess, and it's always been one of my main things with ones and ones that come ask I questions about, oh, how do I, get to whatever levels or build or do this or that. And it is meditation. What is that? People say meditate. A lot of people got ideas, but clarity about what it is and what it isn't, so on and so forth, is not so readily found. What definition wise we can cite meditation is one pointed focus. That means focus in one direction, quite simply. If we're focusing on God, or as people would call it, the divine, or an aspect of our creative source, then that would be a quote unquote spiritual meditation. So when we look at meditation, it is the practice of getting into, or actually, when we say meditation, pardon me, it is the act of actually being in the state, one's true, innate, and natural state of being, which is more or less a waking trance. Fine, as Rastafari, we sit and meditate, yeah, but meditation is more of a thing where it's throughout I day maintaining a focus and being clear and present in the moment, being here and now, and aware of the interaction that's going on with I, source, and whatever other beings may be in play at that particular moment in creation. So our meditation is a little bit more, I would say, not to compare to this or that one, is more encompassing, is a way of life than it is, okay, I'm gonna go and sit for 15 minutes in the morning and noon in the evening and meditate like that. Those are we would feasibly do, but it's more just to get the day kicking. It's more as a watering a plant type of thing. Start or planting a seed for that day, which we'll watch that particular fruit as we water it with our conscious focus and meditation and awareness of our awareness. Then we'll see those particular meditational fruits come forward throughout the course of that day or upcoming days. So it is a creative process, not just something one would cite as, okay, I'm going to sit and imagine something or visualize this thing or that thing. It is really and quite simply going and being in one's beingness and feeling the innate natural state of awareness of awareness. The mind isn't naturally running all around and being, chattery. When you came in as babies and so forth, mine was quite pristine and calm like a pond of water where it's no wind, undisturbed, just moving and flowing with moment to moment, you see. So I cite that a lot of the process of life itself is we getting, to that state of gain consciously and awarely. That's why, masters such as the one Yeshua would say, such as the kingdom of God's children, that openness, that receptivity that they are innate is also something that can be cultivated consciously as adults, and we should, quote unquote, cultivate our children as well to know these things so that they don't have to relearn, reinvent the wheel, re-go through, trials and tribulations that we as individuals have had to go through in our time and timings. A lot of our youth are, just to speak on that real quick, are repeating some of the same old failings and traps rather than, learning from, ones that have gone before, listening to some of the elders and this kind of thing, not in the sense of this one or that one trying to, run game or all of that vibe, but in the sense of someone really, citing out of love, citing out of consciousness, citing out of, paying it forward and doing, good to one's fellow man. Quite simply, really being. Not thinking, not philosophizing, but being that proverbial good Samaritan when, key word there, when it is called, when one is called. Because we all have moments in space time in our life where we are called to act, to be. And those are, I feel, great opportunities rather than calling them a test, but great opportunities and doorways to enter into higher states of consciousness through enacting higher states of consciousness in our life. I think I left off with the last thing that, as far as formative before I went into this thing about meditation, that was from me talking about starting to meditate at 7 and then continuing on. I'm 52 now. in this body chronologically. This body is 52 years of age. I say that in that way because I know things that I feel and know ain't from being from 52 years in this chronological time and in the quote unquote 20th century and the 19th century past. So there's, things I feel and know just innately, which feasibly we can get into that, some of those things a little later. Um, Many of those things were re-stimulated, refreshed in this time by experiences that I had, such as, getting involved for a time with Ausera Set and Kemetic spirituality and studying the tree of life and studying Kemetic uh, cosmology. Mind you, at the same time, I was also very much practicing as a Rasta at a certain point, and being, I should say, because it's not a religion. Rastafari is a way of life, is a way one is, so to speak. Become Rasta. Rasta become you if it's realness happening. Rasta become you more than you become it. Because if it's you becoming it, then more than likely it's your ego trying to run the thing instead of the Most High. Just, cite that up real quick. Think about it. Contemplate it. One's and oneself. Though it takes one's intent to, live love, live truth, live peace, live identity, live wise. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. There's a little bit about I and I to start off with. And the mission. My brethren said to me, you gotta put your video up and start talking to the people and this kind of thing. And I was, I guess, somewhat reluctant because I'm like, I'm better, I felt, at connecting on a, strictly one-to-one or ones-and-ones personal interaction basis. But I'm aware that spirit is able to move through beings in ways that there are no blockages. Technology is a blockage, distance is a blockage. Um, I've learned some of those things just from, I would say from being a Reiki healer and being a master Reiki practitioner, and through that practice, learning such things as distance treatment healing, where I might be in this state and work on somebody in another state or another country even and see that treatment be effective. So distance and these kind of things is irrelevant. Technology is to a certain extent irrelevant. What is relevant is the intent and the focus to mutually build and enlighten with one another in this time. And that's, in essence, what this is about. Like I said, I grew up in Chicago. I started meditating at about 7 or so. Was in the military in the United States Air Force for 4 years from, 19 to 23. And when I was in the Air Force, what was my job there was I was what they call a mental health unit specialist. So that means I worked with patients. I kept uh, maintaining a therapeutic milieu or environment for said patients, running groups at points and points, doing charting and observation on patient behavior and progress and this kind of thing. So that was 4 years in the Air Force, stationed at Andrews Air Force Base right outside of DC where the president's plane was and all that. So I had to get a clearance, secret clearance and all that. I had that, believe it or not, looking at me. I had a secret clearance, strange. But yeah, did that for 4 years, and then after getting out of the military, grew my first set of locks actually in the military, and then after I was coerced verbally by my non-commissioned officer in charge and told quite directly that if I didn't quote unquote take those things out my head, they would make it hard for me getting out of the Air Force. So I had to bust a disguise move and pack my hair down and make it look like a really tight afro. And, finished up my time there. And then for a year, I worked in the West Side Hospital, VA Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, as a outpatient psychiatric case manager, working with what they call recidivist clients, which are clients that are what they call revolving door. They're in and out of the hospital all the time. So called, they're basically some of the intensely mentally ill people. At the same time, mind you, I was going through my own spiritual journey, continuing spiritual journey, and beginning that journey more consciously, and getting into my creative aspects and sides with music. So when I started growing my locks, I managed to keep that job for a whole year, and then they basically realized, whoa, this guy is a Rasta. He's growing locks for real, with the whole cultural aspect included. So one day when I called off work, they sent me via messenger a "you're fired" letter. So that was my full year of working as a outpatient case manager with the whole company car and the beeper and all that vibe. And so I basically just went from that to full on into doing creative ventures, working with music and art and dance, b-boying, and this kind of thing more so. Spend some time doing some traveling around and about. Hope and plan to do some more traveling because there's many more people to see and many more people to connect with and interact with, learn, teach, learn from, and with. I think that's pretty much, at least for, this particular video in space and time. We will talk about more as spirit allows and guides I and I. So as I would say, for the rest of this day and time, take time and realize the fact that your heart is beating, your lungs are moving, and inspiration and expiration is happening. And the Most High, the Creator, the Source of all life, consciousness, enlightenment itself, is running that. Take time to, think about that. Maybe even take 15 minutes, sit down with yourself and connect to that in whatever way it is meaningful to one. There's many ways to meditate and pray. Some do it through music. Some do it through, classic prayer, chanting some psalms or reading some scripture, whatever way that, best suits your person. Mind you, it's all about, each one and one finding, I would say, that inner resonance inside oneself. And we Africans, Black Africans of culture, I would say, to really, really look into and research and understand, understand, our African faiths and quote unquote religious practice, and understand that these practices were and are the root of any quote unquote modern spiritual and or Christian, etc., Muslim, all these other paths. Because when it all comes forward, some of the leaves and some of the branches, but I and I are the roots. Love with light, peace, and happiness and wise minds are. Shall guide and protect one's journey, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Shall give one's clarity of mind and heart, balance of all such things, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. These things we ask for, knowing it is done, Jah. Rastafari, Holy Emmanuel, Selassie, in Yeshua, Selassie, fullness of name, power, and authority. Blessed love and light until next time. One heart, one love, one prayer.